if gold or silver drop in price after I order it?
Well, everything fluctuates with time, but nothing has held up longer and better than gold and silver throughout all the changes that have happened in history. Your first ounce of silver is at spot price, and you get free shipping on any order over $99 at sdbullion.com/RP.
As a responsible person with growing concerns for your privacy and personal liberty, you want to know where we're headed and what you can do about it. We ask the experts what you need to do to take prudent and responsible action to safeguard your family's wealth and well-being, and what basic first steps will help you to be aware and prepared. ReluctantPreppers.com.
Reluctant Preppers provides educational awareness and commentary only. Opinions expressed do not constitute personalized financial advice. Viewers are encouraged to do their own research and seek qualified personal financial consultation before making investment decisions. Welcome back, Reluctant Preppers. We're very privileged to have this distinguished guest. Edward Griffin is the author of The Creature from Jekyll Island, Another Look at the Federal Reserve. He's also the host and sponsor of the Red Pill Expo, which is going to be happening in a couple weeks here in Hartford, Connecticut. Mr. Griffin, thank you for joining us again here on Reluctant Preppers.
Well, thanks for inviting me. It's my pleasure.
We wanted to talk to you for sure today about some of the upcoming events that people could take in at the Red Pill Expo. But before we get to that, last year there was a series of major wildfires that swept over parts of Southern California, just north of the LA area. And if your home, I understand, is in that general neck of the woods, and concerned about how close those wildfires came to you and what preparedness or mitigation steps, risk mitigation, you might have taken personally, or your neighbors or acquaintances that you spoke with took, and any sort of lessons learned that you got from that experience.
Yeah, thanks for asking that question. I don't talk much about it, but it was pretty harrowing, at least for my wife, because I'll start with the funny side of this. It seems like every time here in Southern California that we have some kind of a natural disaster, whether it's a fire or an earthquake primarily, I'm out of town. And I'm laughing because she gets mad. She says, "How do you know these things are going to happen?" And I said, "Well, I have contacts, that's all." That's what happened. That morning I got on the plane. I left, at 30 in the morning. It was dark. I left the house. The shuttle came by, get me to the airport. And I was in the air when the fires broke out. And well, at least I guess they were burning before that, but before anybody noticed them. And when I landed at my destination, my phone was ringing. And my wife is saying, "Do you know what's going on here?" I said, "No, tell me." Well, then she told me what was going on. And that was the beginning of it. And by the end of the day, it was very serious. The poor woman, I wished I could have been there to help, but there wasn't much I could do that she wasn't able to do, fortunately. So, the fires came very close. The closest house that burned to us was about 2 blocks away.
Wow,
right?
that is close.
That's pretty close, yeah. And I think it wasn't, then we had to go another couple of blocks before there was really devastation. Apparently some embers came over and landed on that one house and burned it down. My office is about, probably about 8 miles away from my home. And we had to evacuate the office. And I was on the phone talking to my staff, and they said, "Oh, we can see the flames out the window." I said, "What?" "Yeah," she said, "That's over across the freeway right now. And we can look over there quite easily." I said, "Are you getting out of there?" And she said, "Oh yeah, they're getting out of here now." So fortunately our warehouse didn't burn down, but it was that close. And so my wife had to evacuate. The police came down the street, and I guess in the middle of the night, maybe about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, with the loudspeaker going, "This is official evacuation, and so forth. And of course, you can imagine, is a woman alone, and she's hearing the siren and the loudspeakers. It sounds like the end of the world. And she goes on to the internet and on the radio, and all the freeways are closed out of there. So this big deal. You're supposed to evacuate, but all the freeways that you would use to evacuate are blocked. Now what? So she went not really into panic mode, but she was very concerned, to say the least. So knowing some of the back roads and things, she was able to get in the car and get out of town. Wow. So the house fortunately didn't burn down. We were spared, and we were so grateful. We watched fires where we live. I've been there for many, many, many moons, and we've seen a serious fire, a big fire, where you could look maybe half a mile away or less and see the hills burning. I mean, up in flames. You think, oh, it's an inferno, but it's normal there because it's Southern California, and they have a lot of empty space in the hills and the mountains. Nobody lives up there for the most part. Little clusters of communities that really take a beating when this happens, but mostly it's just burning brush land and so forth, and the fire department just puts a perimeter around it and tries to contain it. They don't try and put it out because it's too monstrous. They just try and contain it, and that's how it works. So you see a lot of fires all the time, and we get sort of callous to it. Think, oh well, there's another fire. Call me when it's over. But this was different, and of course, as you know, everybody knows that a lot of people lost a lot of property, and some were injured. I guess some lost their lives and all of that. So finally, Thousand Oaks, California got its turn to be in the news. So it was a harrowing experience for my wife and for, of course, a lot of other people there as well. Fortunately, it all turned out well for us. So that's the story. It's one of those things you'll remember for a long time. And I'm sure Pat will remember it longer than I do. So, but now the question is, what lessons did we learn? The lessons are few because there's not much we could have done about it. I mean, we had, we had sprinklers. We don't have anything up close to the house that can burn. We have a tile roof. We put that on the house. We did everything, maybe not everything, but the usual things that we thought should be done. But when those fires come down the street like that, there's not much you can do. Your preparations are to no avail. The best thing you can prepare for is to get your important papers together and your most cherished valuables in one place. And we had that pretty much done. Mm-hmm. So get those into the car and get your fanny out of there. But you got to have a road to get out. And so how can you prepare for that? You can't. So I guess there's a mental preparation so that you expect these things to happen. Maybe not expect them, but you know that they're possibilities. So when they do happen, you don't go into panic mode. You say, well, okay, I thought this through many, many times. This is what I'm going to do. And I don't know. I don't have any great wisdom on this except to say it happened to our family. And I think we were lucky. Had that firestorm come down our street, our house probably would have burned in spite of it being a tile roof and all the rest. So, what can you do to prepare for that?
Well, it sounds like a couple key things there was the mental and thought process through what steps you would take in the case of an emergency. Secondly, having at least a handle on where you can get your most important documents and possessions that you need to take with you when you need to get out. And then third, it sounds like is having enough awareness of the possible routes out of your area that you're not stuck with just the one or two main options, but you have other options to plan towards. You covered all of those things. So glad that your house was spared and that you and your wife are safe. And I also have close family members in not too far from where you are in the greater LA area, and very concerned about their well-being in the future of incidents that could happen like this as well. They actually live in a tsunami zone, so they have.
Oh my gosh! Well, not much you can do about that either when that wave comes.
Yeah, that's one of the concerns we have. We've had Brad Harris from Full Spectrum Survival on our channel talking about the official warning will always come too late, and the idea is you have to find ways of getting insight so that you're not the last one to find out. But glad you made it through that, and it's especially challenging.
I was on the East Coast, so I was pretty safe.
That's what I was saying. It's challenging because you weren't there in a sense.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, my wife thinks for sure that I know about these things before they happen, and I cannot convince her otherwise. That's it.
Well, she could travel with you, I guess. Okay, so anyway, speaking of traveling to the East Coast, I also wanted to get you to talk to us just briefly about the Red Pill Expo coming up June 7th, 8th, and 9th in Hartford, Connecticut. This is, I understand, your 4th annual conference of this type, and you have a big lineup of speakers. We already had a chance to talk to David Morgan about it briefly, and if you could let us know what people will not want to miss so that they can make their decisions about whether to take in the Red Pill Expo.
Right. Well, I'm glad you brought that up because that's very much on my mind now. By the way, it's our third annual one.
Third annual, okay.
Yeah, which we feel very good about because when we started this whole thing back in 2017, it was an experiment. We didn't know whether people would, they think it's too campy, to this business of take the red pill and break through the illusion and see reality. It comes from a sci-fi movie, and it's kind of a pop culture thing. And we're used to being very serious. I mean, we're serious as a heart attack about the things we talk about. And the idea that we would try and do something on a public scale that was all based on a science fiction theme and a meme from a movie, we thought, well, nobody's going to take us seriously anymore. But the idea was that we wanted to talk about some very serious things as usual, but we wanted to make it a little lighter, not so heavy, like bring in some of the pop culture and all these ideas, because more people know about, take the red pill. Everybody you talk to, you say, take the red pill, man, and get, wake up. They know what that means. And that's a lot better than saying, you really should go to school and learn about this. And they kind of look at you like, who in the heck are you telling me what I need to know and what makes you so smart and all that stuff. So we thought we would try and ease the pain of talking about serious topics by using the meme of the red pill. So it was an experiment. And our first one was in Bozeman, Montana, of all places. We didn't think anybody would come there, but it was a beautiful place. And a lot of people wanted to go because they needed an excuse to go to Montana. Like myself, I wanted to go to Montana, never had an excuse to go, but I wanted to see the beautiful country. And so anyway, we thought a lot of people would respond that way, and they did. We were very surprised. People came all over the United States, and quite a few people from other countries as well. This turned out to be really an international event, quite to our amazement and surprise. So when it was all over, the comments we were getting from people were just superlative. I mean, people were saying, this is the best conference we have ever attended. And some of those people are conference attenders, And I thought, wow, what did we do right? And what we did is we just hit that right chord where people could say, yeah, this is, we are living in illusions in so many important areas of our lives. In fact, it seems like the more important area it is, the more likely it is that we're living under an illusion. Because those areas, like healthcare and money and banking and education, they're big, massive topics. And there's usually a lot of money and a lot of power involved in those institutions that control these areas of our lives. And wherever there's money and power, that serves like a magnet for corruption. That's a magnet for the predator class. They say, oh boy, here's a chance to make a killing and not go to prison. Mm-hmm. So it's just that simple, really. So we're used to seeing that, but we never thought about the fact that the most cherished beliefs we have, even about our own political system and all of that, it gets so close to home that it's hard for us, all of us, to say, gee, did I make a mistake? Is there something I didn't know? I mean, have I made a fool of myself? All these things. Well, anyway, so they came. That's getting back to the main track. And we decided then, well, we're going to do this again and again and again. And so that's how it started. We had the second one in Spokane, Washington, and it was a huge success. And now here we are in Hartford, Connecticut on June 7th, 8th, and 9th, Red Pill Expo 2019.
I wanted to mention to everybody that Dunnigan Keizer, myself, will be there representing Reluctant Preppers as a member of the alternative media core that are going to be helping to cover this event. So for those who do attend, we'll be able to meet you in person, shake your hand, hand you a business card, and talk to you about things that are of concern in your mind, ideas you have for. I'm sure that Mr. Griffin, you get suggestions from people on ideas they'd like to see discussed and brought into the forum in future events, and I'll also be eagerly seeking out that kind of input from folks who meet up with me about our channel here, Reluctant Preppers, and what they'd like to see us adding to. Can you tell us briefly? And you mentioned some topics very quickly in passing there about money and about healthcare. Can you give us a very high-level blush of what the major informational topical themes are going to be covered there by the speakers?
Oh gosh, there's so many. We have 28 presenters, each of them in their respective fields. They're experts in their field, and they're all vastly important and quite amazing. But just to give you an example, okay, let's see if I can do justice to this. Well, first I'll start with myself. Everybody knows, most people know me from my background in researching the banking system. My book, The Creature from Jekyll Island, a second look at the Federal Reserve System. It really is an amazingly successful book. Again, I didn't think anybody would want to read the darn thing. It was a 600-page document loaded with facts, but I tried to write it like a whodunit, because that's what it really is. Who created this monstrous thing, and why did they do it? So anyway, I'll be talking about that. And but this time, I've teamed up with a very well-known personality, Robert Kiyosaki. Robert is the author of the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yep. And
it's the best-selling book on investments the world has ever seen. It sold millions and millions of copies around the world. And Robert has been, by the way, a primary speaker at all of our expos. This will be number 3. I have to say, when I mention Robert, that, and he's coming again, of course, I'll get back to that. But I have to say this, that Robert and quite a few of our other speakers are very well-known and highly sought-after personalities. And when they get invitations to speak at conferences, they draw a very hefty honorarium. And people will pay it because they know that their customers or attendees will come from all over to hear this guy. And he's never charged anything because we couldn't afford to pay it anyway. None of our speakers are paid. I just want to put that in the record. And that includes Robert and myself and all of the others, even though normally there might be a pretty hefty honorarium. And Robert has been very kind. He says publicly many times, he says, the reason I go to Red Pill Expo is because I go there to learn. And that breaks me up, because Robert is considered an authority, and especially in the field that he's writing about, investments, and a great real estate guru and everything. He said, I go to learn. And so that breaks me up, because people go to learn from Robert. Mm-hmm. But it's true when you think about it, that we all go to learn. We all need to learn. We might be expert in one little or two little areas, but the rest of the world, the rest of the topics in the world, we don't know anything about. We're just as ignorant as you can be. So Robert is always very impressive to me, because it's usually in the front row of the audience listening to the other speakers. Mm-hmm. And he said, oh, I didn't know that, and I didn't know that. So, okay, back to the main track. So Robert and I are teaming up, and we're going to put on, in the very first afternoon of the first day, Friday, we're putting on a 2-hour session called A High School Course on Money That They Don't Teach in High School. Mm-hmm. And when you think about that, isn't it the truth? Kids come out of school, including myself. I didn't know anything about money, who made
right.
it, how it worked or anything. I didn't. Well, there it is. It's like, it's like trees. They're there. They're part of nature. So the first session will be mine. I'll talk about what they don't teach about money. And Robert will have a second section with what they don't teach about wealth. Okay. And you'll come away understanding most people think there's no difference between money and wealth, but there is. And that's why, frankly, that most people in America, at least, where there is a lot of money floating around, they can go through a lifetime. They can earn a fabulous income. They can have a fortune go through their hands, and at the end of their lifetime, they're broke. It's because they don't know the difference between money and wealth. So that's just one. Now let's see. Dr. Zack Bush. Now he's a new person for my acquaintances. I just met him on the internet recently, but I've read his stuff. I've listened to him talk on this topic, and he blew my mind. Now here, Zack he comes from Orthodox medicine. He was one of the super shooting stars in the field of Orthodox medicine, an MD. He's one of the very few triple board certified MDs in the country. It's board certified in 3 specialties. And actually, one of the things he had done for quite a while was to help develop chemotherapy drugs to fight cancer. So he really comes from the Orthodox side. Well, somewhere along the line, he took a red pill. And he came to the realization that, hey, we're not doing the right thing for people. We're actually making things worse. And he had the integrity and the objectivity to challenge his own beliefs and his own practices and just standing back and looking at the results. And he came to the conclusion that he had to back away from all of this drug-based medicine and start looking at the healing properties that come from nature. And once he was willing to take that step, he was a great student. And now he's made the full transition. And he's one of the best teachers you'll ever run into to explain how, if you really want to maximize your health and overcome serious diseases, you better turn to nature. And he's got lots of ideas, and he'll explain why and what aspects of nature and how, natural healing is so much better than chemical healing and so forth. And there's a lot more than that too, because he's talking about how to change the agricultural system in the world, literally in the world, so that we stop producing drug-containing foods, and those alone, as he will explain, are the source. Our food, because it's pesticided and insecticided and fertilized and all that with these chemicals, this food, instead of being our nourishment, is becoming our poison. Well, anyway, you're going to love Dr. Bush. Let's see, who else? I just edited a little intro from a fellow by the name of Mark Robinson. Now, anybody who's been watching the internet for any time would remember this black fellow that came up in South Carolina. I think it was, I forgot what town it was now. Anyway, in South Carolina. And the city council there was trying to pass an ordinance that would forbid a gun show from opening in that town. And there was a hearing, so-called hearing at the city council. City council hearings generally are all rigged. All the people go in there and express their opinions, and the people at the city council sort of go, they don't care. They've already made up their minds, and they've already made their deals, but they have to let people talk, let them feel like they're participating in their own political destiny. So people go and talk, and then nothing changes. That's the usual thing. So anyway, this fellow, Mark Robinson, heard about this event, and he went to this meeting, and he just stood up there, and it got caught on video. The video went viral, and he said something like this. This was his theme. He said, look, he said, you people up there, he said, when are you going to stop listening to all of these crazies, all these crazy people out there, and who want to take away our guns and our rights, and all these people shouting and yelling and screaming and yelling, victim, victim, victim. And he said, when are you going to start listening to the majority? The majority. I am the majority, he said, because I've never committed a crime in my life. I don't hurt people. I don't want free loan. I don't want any of that. I'm just a law-abiding citizen. I want the right to protect myself from crazies out there. And whenever somebody shoots somebody, you come and blame me for it. And you want to take away my guns, and then I can't defend myself. When are you going to start listening to the majority? I am the majority. Oh man, it was a beautiful, beautiful statement right from the heart and the soul. It wasn't a prepared speech or anything. And it was videotaped, and it went wild. This was last year in 2018. And so he is known quite widely now as Mr. I Am the Majority.
Okay.
He's going to be there. He'll be talking about this year. He's not going to be talking about, why law-abiding citizens should have and need to have a means of defending themselves against the criminals. He's going to be talking about who is it specifically, what people and what organizations and institutions are out to take away our guns and why. Okay. All right. That's one. Let's see who else. Member of our Freedom Force Council is Alan Myers, who is ready for this. He's a forensic accountant. A forensic accountant, which means, he investigates the books. He's looking for criminality in the bookkeeping, and he's pretty good at that. Well, he called me a little while ago, about a year or so ago, and he said, Ed, we both know the Federal Reserve is pretty bad. I said, yeah, pretty bad. It doesn't get any worse than that. He said, well, yes, it does. He said, I just found out. He said, we thought it was bad. It's even worse than it was. Wait till I tell you about it. And he found some criminality in the books, which I thought were, the books were clean. They're doing exactly what they're supposed to do, create money out of nothing, charge interest on nothing and all that. And they're authorized to do that. So I didn't think he'd find any crime. Might be unethical, but it's legal. And he said, no, not that. He said, it's worse than that. He said, I found out they're cooking the books. I thought, oh my gosh, it is worse than that. So he'll be talking about that.
Interesting.
It's all interesting. I cannot tell you. These people have a couple of people will be talking about the illusion of education, and as homeschooling as the obvious solution to get kids out of this indoctrination system called education, and so forth. I urge everyone to go online and check out this stellar list of speakers at Red Pill Expo 2019.
And folks, if you go to redpillexpo.org, you'll find out more about that. And starting tomorrow, Monday, Memorial Day, you'll be able to use a code word PREPPERS, PREPPERS, to get a $30 discount if you do sign up for registration there. Yeah. So I just wanted to thank you, Mr. Griffin, for coming back on our channel. You actually were one of our first guests 5 years ago when we got this channel started, talking about that the founding fathers of our family were preppers, ? And that was, we were treating the question of how independent-minded and self-reliant they were, and how we have lost a lot of that cultural ethos of self-reliance and become more and more dependent. So kind of reclaiming our intrinsic right to self-determination, that sort of thing. And back several times since then. So thank you for this latest visit, and we'll see you in person coming up end of next week at the Red Pill Expo. Hope to see many of you viewers there as well. So thank you, Mr. Griffin, for joining us again here on Reluctant Preppers.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation. I'll see you in Hartford.
Hey, Reluctant Preppers. If you haven't heard, we've already started our monthly 1-ounce U.S. Silver Eagle thank you gift to one active Patreon subscriber each month, signed by your host, Dunnigan Keizer. And you don't want to miss out on that.
Please help us grow by subscribing today at patreon.com/reluctantpreppers.